Escobar was known as a father, a philanthropist, and among the richest and most dangerous criminals in history. He set off more than simply the boss of the Medellin Cartel in less than 2 decades. Along with that, Pablo Escobar was also recognized as the Godfather. But over the course of his life, how much money did he rack up? He was one of the wealthiest billionaires in the world according to Forbes. Let's watch this video to search out. But before you watch the video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel for more updates in the future. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Before we get into the specifics, let's take a look at Pablo Escobar's net worth. How much money did Pablo Escobar have? Pablo Escobar, known as a Colombian drug lord who amassed a $31 billion net worth at the height of his career. At the time he was alive, he was the leader of the Medellin drug cartel, the most notorious and ruthless drug organization in history. The cartel was once so powerful that it controlled 80% of the global cocaine market. The cartel and Pablo were responsible for hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of deaths along the road. Many of the victims were unarmed civilians. Now it's time to discuss Pablo Escobar's incredible wealth and fascinating interesting facts. He was born in December 1949 in the Colombian city of Rio Negro in the Antioquia area. He was a third of his siblings. From the beginning, he was a shy kid who was frequently immersed in his own ideas and dreams. During La Violencia, a conflict in Colombia between the Colombian conservative government and the Colombian Liberal Party that lasted from 1948 to 1958 and claimed the lives of 150,000 people, the future cocaine king was born. Those who were lucky enough to survive were thrown into hardship. Escobar desired a better life for himself and began earning his own money. He began selling antique tombstones that he'd stolen from abandoned graves, sanded out the different names and resold. Escobar didn't take long to realize that there was excess money to be gained in the trade of cocaine, and eventually he started his own operation. Drug mafias like Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha, Jorge Luis Ochoa, and Juan Mata Ballesteros formed the Medellin Cartel. Pablo, on the other hand, has always been at the head of the wanted gang. Pablo was the CEO, extremely charming, very strong, very demanding, said Javier Pena, a former US Drug Enforcement Agency official. Those who refused to work under Escobar were put to death. Plata o plomo, he used to remark, which effectively means, take my silver or take my lead. The desire of cocaine in the US eventually overtook that for coffee, with the cartel smuggling 18 tons of cocaine in the whole country every day. They possessed a massive fleet of 146 planes, 22 helicopters, 36 boats, and 141 houses and offices by the late 1980s. At his peak, Pablo Escobar and his cartel provided 3 out of every 5 rows of cocaine consumed in the US. What do you think Pablo Escobar's net worth would be if he were still alive? Isn't that insane? Please share your ideas in the comment section below. Escobar's cartel raked in a calculated $422 million per week in the 1980s, totaling roughly $22 billion per year. Roberto Escobar, his brother, was left with a large sum of money to answer for. The cartel spent $2,500 each month on rubber bands to keep the cash piles together, said Roberto. Escobar was seen as a Robin Hood figure in various parts of Colombia. He gave a portion of his fortune to the development of villages, education, and hospitals. Many people saw him as a hero, since he paid for the medical expenses of those who were less fortunate. The drug kingpin was a major supporter of Medellin's Atletico nationwide team of soccer, whom he helped fund, and he attended many of their games. After his death in 1993, over 21,000 people crowded to a mausoleum on the borders of Medellin, since his legacy had affected their souls in their own eyes. The inaugural edition of Forbes magazine, released in 1987, featured a list of 50 of the world's wealthiest multimillionaires, including Pablo. The only 2 Colombian billionaires to make the cut were Pablo Escobar, who owns 40% of the cartel, and Ochoa Vasquez, who owns 32% of the cartel and shares it with his siblings. They had an undeniable edge in the fight for the richest since their fortune was free of tax. In 1987, Forbes assessed Escobar's net worth to be over $2 billion, along with 3 federal charges in the United States for cocaine trafficking, black money, and several contract killings. Pablo Escobar has remained on Forbes' list for the last 7 years. A hefty 5-foot guy generally prone to rough shirts, chino-lush trousers, and shoes, Escobar is a great specimen of a Colombian presa. A furious, unsentimental nation hustler, Forbes noted of the drug kingpin in the first edition that featured him. And yes, this thriller didn't end there because there is so much more about Pablo Escobar. Keep watching this video until the end. Let's continue. Every business, including cocaine trafficking, will suffer losses. Escobar's losses, however, were on a whole other level, as his sibling and bookkeeper Roberto described in Pablo's biography. Pablo was generating so much money that we'd have to wipe off 10% of it every year because mice would eat it in the store. It would be ruined by moisture, or it would be lost, he wrote. That's around $2 billion in cash for those rats. Escobar placed his trust in his elder brother, but that trust was subsequently broken. According to the New York Times, the Cali cartels, Los Pepes, the Colombian and US governments, and his own brother Roberto were among the 5 entities who took the cocaine king down. His luxurious colonial residence, the Hacienda Nápoles, was home to a self-built zoo, as well as a private airstrip, a main square, and a racing racetrack, all spread out across 5,000 acres. The zoo's operational expenditures were too exorbitant after his death, therefore several of the invasive animals were evacuated. 23 of his hippos, on the other hand, fled and made their homes in the river that surround the ranch in central Colombia, where they have grown over time. They have their own National Geographic documentary, Cocaine Hippos, and are presently the world's largest colony of wild hippos. It can be a logistical headache to carry 20 tons of cocaine every day. Yes, about the weight of 2 massive African elephants. The initial shipments were flown by Escobar personally between Panama and Colombia. Then he was able to bring his cocaine into the United States with the aid of a crowd of jets, with a Learjet. The plane wouldn't return empty. It would be loaded with additional cash for the other cartel. Serving with Escobar would guarantee a large salary. Pilots traveling to the United States would have cocaine placed in the tires of their planes, and a single flight could earn them up to $510,000. He also employed the procedure of soaking pants in form of a liquid cocaine, lawfully exporting them, and then revealing the drug on the other side. Bribes were offered to officials, and any who refused were assassinated. Despite the fact that he was regarded as a hero by many, he is thought to be responsible for over 4,000 fatalities. The most bizarre claims regarding Pablo Escobar's fortune is that he set fire to $2 million to keep his daughter warm. When his relatives were on the struggle from federal authorities, Escobar would fold them, keep them in his car, and travel to a brand new hideaway site, according to his son Sebastian Marroquin. This way, in case of his family members apprehended, they wouldn't be able to divulge his whereabouts. Escobar's paranoia was motivated by his biggest fear, being imprisoned in an American cell for the rest of his life. Sebastian claims that his younger sister Manuela got hypothermia when hiding in the Medellin mountainsides. Escobar got 2 bags holding $2 million and lit a fire with them to keep her cozy and comfortable one morning when she was terribly unwell. Under the continual threat of being apprehended, Pablo Escobar worked on a 6-month arrangement with the Colombian organizations in 1991. He agreed to serve 5 years in prison, but only provided the prison was built according to his specifications and adjacent to his family's house. The restrictions were agreed upon, since his acts had already caused the Colombian political headaches. Escobar's jail, which contained a luxury jacuzzi spa, discotheque, soccer field, and private bar, was called Club Medellin. There were even telephone and fax lines installed so he could continue his business and handle the shattered remnants of his empire. Escobar's jail was ideal for him, as he dreaded both assassination and extradition to the United States. the government of Colombia opted to detain Escobar in a military facility in 1992. A shootout between the Colombian military and Escobar's cronies occurred during the transfer, with the leader of his gang fleeing via the hillside. He'd gotten away with it again. Pablo Escobar was killed in a shootout on the top of a roof with officers of the Colombian National Police on December 2, 1993, after 16 months on the run. What became of the rest of his enormous money remains a mystery to this day. His riches were divided into 4 categories: apparent assets like money, automobiles and residences, instantly hidden assets accessible via caverns or secret chambers in his homes, distantly hidden assets transferred through banks in another country and overseas corporations, and entirely concealed assets. The Colombian authorities were able to unearth valuables worth $100 million, including gold, cash barrels, jewelry, and machine weapons. Former DEA officers claim that more than $1.4 billion is still buried in the ground, with only Escobar's gang team members and the slain drug leader himself knowing where it is. Although digging equipment has been employed to aid in the search for the lost cash, there is still a vast amount of money to be found. So did this unbelievably wealthy lifestyle surprise you? Comment down your thoughts in the comments box below. If you loved watching this video, make sure to like, share and comment on this video. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. This is all about today's video. We will see you in the next one. Cheers.